Good evening, and welcome to another installment of Stories from the Internet, where I bring you the creepiest real-life stories from all over. For a continual supply of creepiness, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you never miss a future episode. Sit back, hit the lights, and let's begin. Tonight's stories come from Japan. These tales are of the slit-mouth woman. According to Japanese folklore, Kuchisake-onna, or the slit-mouth woman, was a human woman who was mutilated during her life, her mouth being slit from ear to ear, similar to Heath Ledger's version of the Joker in 2008's The Dark Knight movie. In some versions of the story, Kuchisake-onna was the adulterous wife of a samurai during her life. As punishment for her infidelity, her husband sliced the corners of her mouth from ear to ear. Other versions of the law include that her mouth was mutilated during a medical or dental procedure, or that she was mutilated by another woman who was jealous of her beauty, and another saying that her mouth is filled with numerous shark-like teeth. After her death, the woman returned as a vengeful spirit, or onryo. As an onryo, she covers her mouth with a cloth mask, often specified as a surgical mask, or in some iterations, a hand fan or a handkerchief. She also carries a sharp instrument with her, which has been described as a knife or large pair of scissors. She is said to ask potential victims if they think she is pretty or attractive. If they answer no, she will kill them with her weapon. And if they answer yes, she will reveal her mutilated mouth. She then repeats the question, "Even now?" And if the individual responds with no or screams in fright, she will kill them with her weapon. If they respond with yes, she will slice the corners of their mouth from ear to ear, resembling her own disfigurement. It is said that the only way to survive an encounter with her is to answer with so-so, or what do you think, to confuse the spirit. Now that you've had a brief rundown of the backstory, here are 3 bone-chilling tales of people's encounters with the slit-mouthed woman. Many years ago, there was a young man of 20 called Kosuke who worked at a shop in Motokikucho, Edo. Being a fresh new employee, he was asked by his boss to run an errand in what is present-day Shinjuku. He was asked to deliver a letter and wait for the reply, but the reply took a considerable amount of time. By the time he was able to return, the sun was already setting, and to top it all off, it had started to rain as well. Kosuke pulled out his umbrella and lit a lantern, then put the letter in his pocket and hurried along the street back to the shop. Along the way, he noticed a young woman, soaked and running in the street. He called out to the woman and told her he was returning to Motokikucho, but if she would like to share his umbrella along the way, she could. The woman stopped dead in her tracks and quickly turned around. The moment she did, Kosuke screamed and fell backwards. The woman's mouth was cut from ear to ear, fangs jutted out, and her eyes sparkled at the sight of him. Kosuke had worried about returning to the shop late, but ended up being carried back. On his arrival, it was as though he had aged all at once. His teeth fell out and his face grew old. Without saying another word, he took his final breath. There were several slit-mouthed woman sightings in the area at the time. It is believed that Kosuke was attacked by her, based on the story he told the men who found him. You might think most of these stories come out of ancient Japan. However, in 2012, there was a young woman from America studying abroad in Japan. We will call her Susan. Susan had heard the stories of the slit-mouthed woman, but figured it was myth, like most anyone else. She had no idea what was in store for her in the morning while she was waiting at the bus stop. Susan sat waiting at the bus stop with a few other people, all of Japanese descent. They were all busy reading newspapers or looking at their phones. Then a young lady wearing a surgical mask began walking over to the small group. Nothing out of the ordinary. It's pretty common for people to wear them in Japan. Not a single person made eye contact with the young woman, except for Susan. Big mistake. The young woman wearing the surgical mask approached Susan and asked, Do you think I'm pretty? The people around them seemed to bury themselves deeper in what they were doing, as if they knew something was going on. Susan responded, "Sure, I guess so." The young woman removed the surgical mask to reveal a horribly disfigured face and asked, "How about now?" Susan almost screamed. She knew what this was. The legend was true. The people around her, why did they pretend nothing was going on? Then it hit her on how to survive the encounter. She responded, "What do you think?" The woman paused, looked puzzled, then wandered off. Minutes later, Susan boarded the bus, and her day continued as normal. Alas, Susan's story does not end there. According to Susan, she saw the slipmouth woman randomly around the town for the remainder of the semester. After that, she happily went home, feeling relieved the nightmare was over. Or was it? When she arrived back home, she was plagued by nightmares of the woman, and sadly took her own life a few weeks after returning home. Back in 1979, there were several reports of children in the Tokyo area being stopped by a slipmouth woman on the streets. The woman would ask the same question from the Japanese law, "Am I pretty?" She then revealed her face to the kids and chased after them with a pair of scissors. The teachers of the children began walking the kids home from school every day. That seemed to help the situation for a short time. A few weeks later, a teenage boy who was walking what seemed to be an empty street, except for a young woman who was approaching him wearing a surgical mask. She stopped in front of the teenage boy and asked, "Am I pretty?" The young man looked her over and responded, "Yeah." She then pulled off the mask to reveal her scar, where she had been cut from ear to ear. She asked the boy, "How about now?" The boy screamed. Then the woman pulled out a pair of scissors, giving him the same cuts. After this, schools were closed down and the police were out in full force looking for the woman. Not long after this, there was another encounter with a young man. This time, the young man ran from the woman across the street. The slipmouth woman was hit by a car and killed? That's right, this series of sightings around the Tokyo area were from a real, disfigured, crazy woman. There's also reportedly a coroner's report from her death. It is believed that the legend of the slipmouth woman was made famous from this series of unfortunate events. Thank you all for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed this video. You can follow me on most social media and chat with me over at the Opinionated Outcast Discord server. If you really like what I do, consider supporting me on Patreon for as little as $2 a month, where there are rewards, sneak peeks, and other Patreon-only exclusives. All links are in the description below. Thank you, and remember, it's always scarier when it's real. Good night.